I just found some of the funniest fake Minecraft speedruns because these speedrunners are absolutely terrible at hiding the fact that they're literally cheating. This speedrunner starts by loading into the world, where immediately we can see a ruin portal and also a village, which is a very good start for a speedrun. Well, the speedrunner immediately heads towards the ruin portal, where they open the chest and find normal loot, like obsidian, gold, pants, and an axe. All loot that is possible for a ruin portal to spawn, so nothing seems too suspicious yet. The speedrunner begins taking the loot out of the chest, and we can see that they gain the advancement Ice Bucket Challenge, which means that this is their first time touching obsidian. So the obsidian that they found in the chest could actually be real. Also, I just realized that the speedrunner's name is Mr. Beast 67. What a very, unique name. Well, once the speedrunner finished looting the chest, they begin making their way towards the village. But hold on just a second. There was actually something that is already fake about this speedrun. Well, if we rewind the footage and then pause it right here, we can see that the golden axe had infinite durability, which is not a real enchantment inside of Minecraft. So something very sus is going on here. Well, once the speedrunner arrives at the village, they start entering villagers' houses and breaking their beds, which is actually something that pro speedrunners do all the time. They then begin breaking hay bales for food later in the speedrun. They then begin looking for the iron golem, but wait just a second. If we zoom in on the sheep, something is not right, because this is what a normal sheep looks like. And this sheep is, well, fat. And fat sheep are not inside of normal Minecraft. Well, the speedrunner completely ignores the sheep and eventually finds the iron golem. So they smack the iron golem, build 3 blocks up, and begin killing it. And once it dies, they get 3 iron ingots. And I'm not gonna lie, mostly everything has seemed pretty normal. But what happens at the end of the speedrun is absolutely insane. Well, now that the speedrunner has basically everything they need to go to the Nether, they begin making their way back towards the ruin portal. But wait just a second. You see, this entire time, the speedrunner has had their microphone unmuted, and they're actually about to say something that makes the speedrun completely fake. And, well, I'll just let you listen to it for yourself.
Okay, so I need wood. I think this tree gives me obsidian, right? Oh yeah, there we go, yep. Alright, that's enough.
Yeah, the speedrunner walked up to this tree and then magically started getting obsidian. The speedrunner knew that this was going to happen because they literally said it out loud. The speedrunner is terrible at cheating. They use the wood to make a crafting table, and they make themselves a bucket and some bread. They then break the crafting table and arrive at the ruin portal to start making themselves a brand new portal. But the speedrunner starts constructing the portal in a very weird way, because once they're finished, we can see that this is clearly not a normal Nether portal. So there's no way that they're gonna be able to light it, right? Well, the speedrunner opens up their inventory and realizes that they don't have a flint and steel. So they open up the ruin portal chest, and what the heck? How is there a flint and steel here? Because if we rewind the footage back to the start of the speedrun, we can see that there was no flint and steel inside of it at the beginning. So how the heck did they get a flint and steel inside of this chest? Well, I have no idea. But since they now have a flint and steel, they can go to the Nether. But then the speedrunner somehow lights the portal. What the heck? I have no idea how the speedrunner somehow lit the portal when this is not a normal portal. I am so confused. Well, now the speedrunner has a portal, so they can go into the Nether. But instead, the speedrunner decides to go back inside of the village, when out of nowhere, they somehow pick up a villager. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this speedrun is definitely cursed. Well, now that the speedrunner has taken this villager without its consent, they then begin heading into the portal. But hold on just a second. You see, I currently have 0 subscribers, and it's always been my dream to one day reach 1 subscriber. So if you could do me a huge favor and be my first ever subscriber, that would genuinely make my entire day. Okay, now back to the speedrun. The speedrunner loads into the Nether, and we can immediately see that they gained the advancement we need to go deeper, which means that this is their first ever time inside of the Nether. And not only that, we can also see a fortress directly in front of them, which means they must have gotten a pretty good spawn. Well, the speedrunner looks around around for a little bit, and wait just a second. Do you see that? Well, if we zoom in right here, we can see what appears to be a, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what the heck this is. But this is definitely not inside of normal Minecraft. But regardless, the speedrunner completely ignores whatever the heck this is and heads into the fortress where they place on their crafting table and make themselves a golden pickaxe. And as they head deeper into the fortress, we can see that there's also a bastion inside of the fortress. But this is very weird because the bastion and the fortress are physically incapable of spawning inside of each other, which means that the speedrunner likely typed in a command to allow these two structures to spawn inside of each other, which, in case you were wondering, would be completely against the rules of speedrunning. But the speedrunner heads into the bastion and we can immediately see a bunch of piglins that are already inside of a hole. And something tells me that the speedrunner made this hole themselves, because inside of a normal bastion, this hole is never here. Well, the speedrunner finds some chests and all the loot seems pretty normal. They then begin dropping gold into the hole to try to get some more piglins to trade with. But suddenly, out of nowhere, the speedrunner starts digging into the wall where they find golden blocks. But these golden blocks never spawn behind this wall. As a matter of fact, I found this same exact bastion inside my own world, and this is what it usually looks like. So I can 100% confirm that the speedrunner placed down these golden blocks there themselves, which would completely disqualify this speedrun as being legit. Well, the speedrunner places down the crafting table and makes himself an iron pickaxe, that way they can now mine the gold. And that's when we find out that there was actually 10 golden blocks behind this wall, which makes this part of the speedrun even more fake. They turn all their golden blocks into golden ingots and then drop the piglins more gold. They then dig into the hole to pick up their trades. But when they open up their inventory, we can see that they have no ender pearls, which means that the speedrunner got pretty unlucky. But watch this next part very carefully, because the speedrunner closes their inventory, builds one block up, and then opens their inventory, and we can see 16 ender pearls. But if we look back 2 seconds ago, we can see that they had no ender pearls. So how the heck did they get 16? Well, if I'm being completely honest, I believe that the speedrunner went inside of creative and gave themselves these ender pearls, but just cut it out of the run. And I'm not gonna lie, they almost got away with it. Well, now that the speedrunner has all of the ender pearls they need, they now just need blaze rods. So they run to the other side of the fortress, where they instantly find a blaze spawner, almost like they knew it was here. But of course, I don't know this for sure. The speedrunner arrives at the blazes, but I'm gonna pause it right here, because if we look inside chat, we can see that they gained the advancement into fire. But you can only gain this advancement if you pick up a blaze rod. And what do you know? Inside their hotbar is a blaze rod. But if we rewind the footage just a little bit, we can see that they had nothing in that hotbar slot. And within 2 seconds, they magically gained a blaze rod. But there was no blaze rod on the floor. So how the heck did they do this? Well, if we continue watching the run, we can see tons of blaze rods just falling all over the floor. And this is likely due to a command block that the speedrunner must have underneath the fortress. And well, since they can have an infinite amount of blaze rods, they just end up picking up all the blaze rods and then making their way back towards their portal. Once they're in the overworld, they turn their blaze rods into blaze powder and then make themselves 13 eyes of ender. They then throw their eye of ender and then begin heading in that direction. But as the speedrunner starts heading in this direction, they decide to do something very, very strange. Well, I'll just let you watch this part for yourself.
This speedrun's kind of boring. I'm gonna start playing some music, I guess.
Yeah, the speedrunner starts playing Mr. Beast music. What the heck is going on? Well, as they're listening to some music, they then randomly start digging straight down, where they find a massive cave. And inside this cave is the stronghold. Well, hold on a second. This part is clearly fake, because the stronghold can only spawn 67,000 blocks away from your spawn. And if I'm being completely honest, this is definitely not 67,000 blocks away, which means that this stronghold is definitely fake. Well, inside the stronghold, they find a red torch, and then they find another, and another, and they continue following these red torches, which brings them directly to the portal room. And now that they're here, they place in all of their eyes of ender, and they're now in the end. And all throughout this entire speedrun, the speedrunner has been cheating non-stop. So I'm hoping that the speedrunner will at least fight the ender dragon without cheating, to at least make this speedrun a little better. But then the speedrunner arrives at the island, where we can suddenly see a red sword. And once they pick it up, we can see that it's called the God Sword. What the heck? Well, now that the speedrunner has the God Sword, they begin chasing down the Ender Dragon, where they suddenly click the floor and tons of TNT starts falling down onto the dragon. And they do this more and more until the dragon eventually perches and they one-hit the Ender Dragon, beating the game and entering the portal with a time of 14 minutes and 39 seconds. All that cheating and they still could not beat the world record. If you like that video, then I would highly recommend that you watched this video, because trust me, it's just as cool.